Well, I'm here with Shim and Emma. Welcome back to Canada.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys fans of the country? You like coming here?
Yeah, we've been here 3 times. And as we were talking about before, the first time was a disaster.
Why?
Because we got stopped at immigration on the way in. We didn't know well enough that we had all the right paperwork, so we got stopped there for a while.
It was on the train?
Yeah, it was on the train.
Oh, wow.
We caught the train over because of the luggage requirements were less. We were broke. We rented a van and a trailer, and we slept in the van. We had to drive from, what are the 2 furthest cities again geographically? It's
in Canada?
In Canada, yeah.
I guess St. John's and...
It was like
why are you asking me
on
geography?
opposite side, because we basically had to drive from the opposite side of the end of the country to the other over the space of about 3 days and play shows in the middle. So we were driving the whole time. And then on a Sunday evening in Montreal, tire blew on the trailer. And so we called up everywhere that we could to get assistance, and no one wanted to talk to us because we didn't speak French. And we would try to speak French. We tried to say, do you speak English? Because I'm sorry, we don't understand French. And whoever was on the phone to these places at the end, midnight, they just weren't interested, and they were like, "No, we really can't help you. We really can't help you." And we didn't even understand when they were saying we can't help you. So we were like, "What are we going to do?" We were like, we don't even know how to. We couldn't talk to them, and we couldn't get the help that we needed to get the tire fixed. So we were like, what we had to do was park the van at McDonald's, because it was the only place that was open 24 hours, and wait. We unhitched the trailer and drove the van around to try and find a place that would sell us a tire, and we basically had to sleep in the van at sub-zero temperatures because McDonald's wouldn't let us sleep in there because they thought we were homeless. Because I mean, why wouldn't you? And
why would you let us sleep in there?
Why would you let us sleep in McDonald's? I mean, you wouldn't let us McDonald's. I mean, there's at 3 in the morning, so we had to wait until 7. We were freezing cold. Everyone was snoring. No one could.
Everyone got sick too.
Everyone got violently ill, and then we managed to get a tire for twice as much as it should have been because the guy railed us because we were desperate. We went and did the show. Nobody came because it was our first time, and then we didn't come back for about 2 years because we finished off our first record dressed up as Life touring it, went to the studio and made Tripolar, and then we got the Nickelback support, and we came up with Nickelback in exceptional style, and it was a great tour, and it was a really good introduction to everyone in Canada to show them what we're doing and what we're about, and now we're here selling out a couple of shows before we hopefully come back again in a few months.
Awesome. Thanks
Does
for
that answer
coming
your question?
Yeah. Well, I want to apologize on behalf of my fellow Canadians for your first experience here.
No problem, man.
But since you guys moved to LA, well, how many years ago was that?
5 years.
5 years ago. I mean, you've gained in popularity quite a bit since then. There have definitely been some milestones. Your latest album is Tripolar.
Yes.
After the first major label record, what was your attitudes going into that? Did you have different motivations?
The first American major label record?
Yes. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, the motivations were completely different. On the first record, we wrote songs about moving over to the States from Australia and a lot of stuff that was carried over from high school and stuff like that, and basically not having anything. And then after we'd been on tour for 2 years, we go to our merchandise desk after every show and we sign and we talk to the people that come to the shows, and we meet them again and again if they come back again and again, and you get to know their names and their faces and some of their stories. And so we listened to a lot of their stories and found that a lot of their stories were the same as ours. So when we went to write the next record, we wrote about those stories because we realized that if we can find the common ground between us and our fans, we're going to make more of a connection musically, and that's our job.
And then for Tripolar, I mean, I've noticed there's a lot of anger on that record.
Well,
a lot of strong emotions.
Yeah, there was a lot of strong emotions.
Yours?
No, there are a lot of strong emotions in our fans as well as us.
Oh, I see.
So we went on to sickpuppiesworldcrew.net, which is a dedicated fan site where we can communicate with our fans whenever we want. And every week we do a web chat, and we would ask them what they want to hear more of, what they want to hear less of. And they told us straight out. And so we went into the studio to write, knowing that, and had a specific set of guidelines. And basically what they did was they gave us permission to stretch musically, to be more aggressive in certain songs, and then they also said, but if you go to a softer place later in the record, we will support, that we want to hear that too. So rather than just make, 10 songs that are really heavy with one token ballad, we were able to really stretch it and put dynamics within the songs and segues and things, because they said we want to hear it. So we were able to. I think any band really can do anything musically that they want to do. It's just the choices you make what sort of band you want to be, and we found out from our fans that they were going to let us be as musical as we could be. So we tried to really stretch it more. So the heavier songs are heavier and the softer songs are softer.
Do you think it's a band's responsibility to do what their fans want?
I think it's a band's responsibility to listen to their fans more now. I don't think it's a band's responsibility to cater or pander to their audience, because if they feel that they're being pandered or catered to, they're not going to respond. But I think you need to just listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and you probably should use them accordingly. So you listen to where they're coming from, and then you find the same way that you're in a relationship with a friend or a girlfriend or anything. The reason you're in a relationship is because you have common interests and you share common backgrounds and aspirations for the future, and that's the same sort of foundation we've tried to build with the people that listen to our music. So you listen and you say, well, I don't really understand that part of what you're talking about, but I completely relate to this. So then you write songs about that stuff because it means something to you, it's important and relevant, and then they can connect on it. And then when you go out to a Sick Puppies show, hopefully you have a better time than a lot of other bands, because we've really tried to create that connection. We try to create an experience that people can leave feeling less alone than when they walked in.
Very cool. When you make decisions as a band, do you think of yourself as a fan? Like what you've appreciated in bands that you're a fan of?
I think so. You're really good at that.
I would say definitely, because I remember like we'd have some conversations about our direction or whatever, or what should we do in the next step, and like we'd always like sort of catch ourselves saying, well, I remember when we loved Silverchair and when they did this, I loved that and whatever. So yeah, we definitely incorporate that in, because you kind of have to, because like you're always on the go, you're always moving, and you can kind of lose touch of that, the fan side of things. And it's always good to sort of like think about what you would have wanted from your favorite band. So yeah, I would say that for sure.
You said loved Silverchair, not huge fans anymore?
Good point. That's a good point.
Cooled a bit on the Silverchair.
You can get
Picked
yourself
up
out
on
of this
that.
one.
Well, I'm happy to. Yeah. Well, we were talking earlier about how everyone says when you mention Silverchair, it's either Frog Stomp or Freak Show. Sometimes Neon Ballroom, hardly ever Diorama,
yeah.
and then
thumbs up from the audio guy back there.
Yeah, it's true. Like every like fan of Silverchair will always say, you know, the old stuff is just way better than the new stuff, and it's just true. It's just fact, actually, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. Basically, I mean, Diorama was my favorite record. Freak Show was yours?
Freak Show was mine. Yeah.
And yeah, that's.
And now it's
now it's totally fucked.
To put it bluntly.
Yeah. Sorry, Ben and Chris.
Is that your
Ben and
professional
Chris.
opinion? Oh, sorry to Ben and Chris.
Yeah.
Well, I think Daniel's satisfied as an artist.
Daniel's been satisfying himself for years, but I think.
I think that's been the problem.
I think we've been fans of, this is what we were talking about before, we've been fans of Silverchair since the beginning, in Australia, before they broke in the States. Not that that puts us above anything in anyone else, but what it does is it puts you in a place where you have, as far as I'm concerned, permission by way of your relationship with the band to judge them, to judge their music, because the music is being made for you. They're making the music for them, but they don't get to make another record if no one buys it, so they have to pay attention to what is going on outside their little circle of the band. You know, you have to do the right thing by your band, you have to do the right thing musically, because you have to play it for 2 years straight. So you have to take that into consideration, but there is a large respect you need to have of the people listening to it, and I think that when certain bands, I think evolution is different from change. They've changed.
Too drastic a shift?
Yeah,
or?
I think
so.
Evolution is when you have a foundation, like evolution, you know, is like you are who you are, and it never changes, and you evolve from that, but you always have that core part of you. Silverchair is an example of a band that appear to have completely changed. They haven't evolved and kept certain parts of what got them started. So there are a lot of fans who have evolved. Their fans haven't changed and their tastes haven't changed. They still want to hear that stuff. So now when they go to a Silverchair record, they don't get what they want to hear anymore. So there's only so much Silverchair out there of that old stuff. So then instead what you do is, I mean, it's lucky for us, like I was saying, hopefully maybe what they'll do is they'll go and pick up a Sick Puppies record instead, because we play heavy guitars and stuff, you know, but that's, it's just a level of responsibility that you try to diligently remember, because we work 20 days in a row for, you know, 12 hours a day with no breaks or rest, and then maybe a couple of days off here. There's no real time off. It's very easy to get in your own head. And that's why we sign at the merchant desk all the time. It's why we try to talk to a lot of people. More importantly, try to listen to a lot of people.
That's very cool. I mean, I wish every band would do that, and don't know why they don't, really.
They probably,
That
I
seems
think people are
obvious.
starting to now with the internet because there's so much more competition.
Right.
You have to pay more attention. You know, it's it'd be nice to live back in the days of Zeppelin when you can sit in the studio for a year and make a gnarly record or Rush and it'd sell 5 million copies just because you're Rush and you can't download music illegally, so you have to buy it, but we're not there anymore.
Yeah, well, it seems, I mean, back then there was also, you could afford and have an air of mystery, I
Yeah.
think.
That's true. It's almost preferred.
Well, it's preferred with bands to have an air of mystery. It's just not really
You
viable.
can't, yeah.
Right? You
not
feel like fans have to know the real you, or you have to let them?
You have to know your fans.
Okay, but in terms of revealing yourself, I mean,
I think in terms
you
of
guys being on your websites and talking to fans and
there's-
meeting them in person.
You kind of have to be, because if they like you as an artist, then
There's a
if you're
certain
not
amount you have to
yourself,
give.
then you're gonna live like a double life.
Yeah, but you have to give a certain amount of yourself, but you can't give everything. But I think that you can figure out what the right thing to do is by listening. You listen to what they're going through, and you can figure out, all right, I've been through this or that, or I can just relate. Or really, sometimes you don't need to say anything; you just listen. And but yeah, there is a certain element of your personality that, you know, we do a lot of interviews and talk a lot about our music, but also music in general. And people ask us about this. People always want to ask bands, everyone, like, what do you think about the music industry? Because it's changing every 2 months.
Right.
And it's hard questions to answer, man.
So everyone's just playing it by ear, sort of.
Everyone's playing it by ear. That's the whole point. That's why you need to listen, because everyone is playing it by ear. Anyone that says they have the answer is lying. Straight up. Straight up.
Liars.
They're lying. They don't know. Yeah, I know what's going to. No, you don't.
All right, so
You don't.
first,
Did you know there was going to be a tsunami? Did you know there was going to be a recession? No.
All right, so first you attacked Silverchair, and now it's everybody is the second category. You're just not holding back, man. All right, let's some neutral ground here. You released a couple of acoustic
let's talk about Sick
EPs.
Puppies for a while.
Okay, you
Okay.
released a couple of acoustic EPs after your album Tripolar. What made you want to, reinterpret, would you say, some of the songs?
Yeah, the term that was coined was reimagined. Actually, someone said they sound reimagined, and so we really like that. We wrote most of the songs for Tripolar acoustically, because we know how we sound as a band, so we can play it acoustically and be like, well, it'll sound like that when we plug it in. So we wrote them and made sure the lyrics and the melodies were right and the songs were the best that they could be. Then, when we were asked to come to radio stations and stuff, that we could play them acoustically because that's how they were written. And then after people heard them a lot, they wanted to have a copy of it. So we made a 4-song acoustic EP that was kind of a token thing for our fans who asked for it, and it did well. But then after more and more people asked for it, the label came to us and said, "Do you want to do, you know, a full acoustic thing?" And we got a budget and some time off in the studio to go and do it properly, and we hired string arrangers and players, and we re-recorded a lot of the vocals and completely re-recorded "You're Going Down" into like a Nick Cave, Led Zeppelin-y sort of progressive thing. And that's the sort of thing where if we had gone to people and said we wanted to do an acoustic record, people would probably want to shoot you in the back of the head, because they'd say, well, you're being really indulgent and you're a rock band, and where do you get the balls to suddenly want to go and make an acoustic record in the middle of the tour? Because the fans asked for it and it was filtered to the label and we were given permission, we were able to confidently go into a studio and say, we're allowed to stretch ourselves a little more right now, and it's going to work because the fans are asking for it and they've given us permission to do it. It's the most important part of the whole relationship. The whole most important part of the industry is making sure that you have that's how you know. That's the best. That's the best way of knowing. You don't know anything for sure, but the best way of knowing is if you have the support of your fans on what you're going to do next. There's going to be people that are going to be interested in hearing it and hopefully buy it and get behind it. So when we went in to do a more eclectic musical record, rather than just remix it and put a techno beat under it and say, here's a remix album, we sort of did something more artistic and stretched ourselves the way that Silverchair did to, and we didn't go that far, but like you can stretch yourself, you can be musical, you can really do that, and the fact that we were given that privilege is we really wanted to take it as far as we could, so we found out how far we could take it by our fans, and then we went there.
Interesting. So that's Polar Opposite.
That's Polar, yeah, the title of that is called
Yeah.
Polar Opposite. It's 8 tracks, and they're completely re-recorded and reimagined and stringed. It's fantastic, and it's incorporated into the live show now as well. This whole tour has elements of it in the show.
Would you say that you would have done Polar Opposite recorded and released it if not for the fans' attitudes?
Probably not.
Towards it? Interesting.
I don't think so.
Interesting. Okay, I just have one last question for you, actually. How far do you think your career would have gone, or let me rephrase that, where do you think your career would be at right now had you stayed in Australia instead of moving to LA?
Nowhere.
Really?
Nowhere. We'd be in Australia.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, and so I think someone asked us, would we, if the scene was like, they compared it to the Canada scene, and they said that rock was a pretty big, like it's like one of the main scenes here. It's healthy and it's thriving, and they said, would you, if that was like that in Australia, would you have stayed? And yeah, we would have stayed. But the thing is, yeah, it's like it's so non-existent, and it's very much like people love like just dance music and pop and. I don't know, it's like more like top 40 stuff, and then blues and roots, that kind of stuff. But when it comes to rock and
Everything
rock
else
bands,
except us, basically.
yeah, like we wouldn't have been able to survive at all, and we didn't. So that's
We tried. We made a record, did a tour. We were there
there was
working really
no-
hard for 2 years straight, and the amount of positive results that we got from 2 years in the States versus what we did in Australia was
you can't match that.
polar opposite.
Yeah.
Are you getting love there now? Or from there
In the
now,
last
maybe?
6 weeks, we started getting love.
Really
Why?
recently.
Because maybe broke into the top 20 in the States, and so Australia's playlists
So
are a
it's-
little more
yeah,
dictated by the
the
UK
top
and
40.
the top 40 in the States and the UK. So because we broke
That's
here,
funny, actually.
they're sort of forced to play our music whether they want to or not. And now, luckily for us, they want to.
Well,
So we're going to go back as soon as we can and hopefully sell out some shows.
cool. Well, thank you guys so
Hey,
much
man.
for coming
Thank
in.
you.
Thank you for
Awesome
having
talk
me.
to you.
Cheers.
ExploreMusic wears English Laundry apparel.